It's scary being a reapplicant for that reason, especially if you're doing a lot of the right things already. Application Renovation Season 3. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. I'm excited to chat with you and talk about your application, your
Great.
first application to medical school. For a recap for those watching, let's get the suspense over with. How many interviews did you get?
0,
0 interviews.
unfortunately.
Okay. So for you watching this, the question in your mind should be, why did she get 0 interviews? What in the application is going to make it seem obvious why this student didn't get any interviews? And I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be as easy as you think. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at your application. Before we do that, I want you to reflect. Why do you think you didn't get any?
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons, well, I found you a little bit too late. I had already sent in my application. I know. So I definitely did all the things that you say not to do. I tried to sell myself too much in my personal statement. I also talked about why I would be a good doctor, not why medicine. And then I think in my activities too, I kind of did the same thing. I did a lot more explaining of my activities rather than what impact I had on them and what I got from those. So.
Yep. And as we go through it, you'll see I kind of have those same conclusions. So I think good reflection, a good interpretation of watching the content you've watched from me, and potentially how to improve your application moving forward. So let's go and look at your application right off the bat. You applied super early, June 8th. Great job. Your application wasn't processed until July 18th. Was there a delay with your transcripts or an issue?
There was, yeah. There was an issue with my transcripts, and then once it got verified, it was a couple weeks after, so it didn't get processed until that day.
Yeah, there was lots of issues last year, unfortunately. All right. So we look through demographics. Nothing big stands out. And no big red flags in terms of felonies, misdemeanors, etc. Just, I'm putting it out there now. Supposedly, I've seen from one person that AMCAS and all of the application services are going to have to get rid of criminal history questions on the application because there are a few states that have passed a law where when you are applying for a position, and applying for medical school, I guess, is incorporates that as well. They're not allowed to ask for criminal history in those applications. Obviously, stuff will come up in a background check, and so I don't know how that's all going to play into effect, but we will find out. All right, so we get 2 grades, your transcripts, and we see lots of AP stuff being transferred over with credits there for passing, good grades that we see kind of going throughout, A's, A minuses, B plus in sociology. How dare you?
I know.
Your B in organic chemistry, such a failure.
I know.
So lots of great grades. Obviously, grades are not a big issue for you. You started off with your 393 freshman year, 367, 366, so kind of hovering around the same spot junior and sophomore year. And then senior year picked it right back up with a 391. Mm-hmm. So great 378, science, 39 all other, 381. Cumulative, GPA, not an issue. MCAT score. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I just had a quick question. Yeah. So I had some advisors tell me that to explain the downward trend and then the back to the upward trend, but is that significant enough to where it needs explanation? Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Not at all, right? An A minus is a 3.7. So
yeah.
How dare you went from A's to A minuses? Explain yourself.
Yeah, they were just like, oh, you should explain what happened those 2 years. And I wasn't sure that was the right advice. So
not needed at all. MCAT score, 512. Great job there. Then we go to, and nothing section-wise that stands out. Great job through all the sections.
Thank you.
So good job with the MCAT. And then we get to your activity section and kind of going to your own reflection. Your activity descriptions are really heavily focused on these are the skills that I've learned. Right? Yeah. And so for poster presentation here, this experience enhanced my presentation skills and taught me how to accurately and succinctly explain scientific data to an audience. Okay, great. Wonderful. You're the first person ever that knows how to do that. So again, as you mentioned earlier on, poster presentations probably not the best example of giving a story, but focusing on something that shows impact potential a little bit more is something you could do there. Medical assistant here for paid employment. Obviously, it looks like a pretty full-time gig here where you're working as a medical assistant with the hours that you have in. That looks great. And just, again, the experience description, the most meaningful experience, very basic kind of mistakes. The experience description is really around job duties, right? I serve as a medical assistant and scribe. You assist during surgeries and procedures, perform a variety of admin tasks, exposure to medical billing, working with insurances, blah, blah, blah. So not super impactful there. Anyone who works as a medical assistant could copy and paste that into their own activity description and nobody would be the wiser, right? Yeah. It's always kind of a litmus test for me. Can I copy and paste this? Is there anything unique to you in there? And I don't think there is. Okay. Then we get to most meaningful experience for this one. And again, skills. Office visits require me to pay close attention to the physician while scribing and preparing procedures simultaneously. Like, look at me. I can do it all at the same time and not make any mistakes. Right? Yeah. A better understanding of individualized care and how to deliver compassionate quality support, blah, blah, blah. Right. So again, just super basic mistakes. And the closing remark here of learning more about logistical aspects of medicine. Like, great, wonderful.
Yeah. And there is in that one, I tried to do a little bit of a story, my little attempt, that kind of second paragraph. Did that work at all enough? I mean, I know I need to do more of that, but does that kind of little bit give a little bit more insight, I guess?
Potentially, right? You have this story here. I recall one patient who had low pain tolerance and a large non-healing wound. I would clean the wound and the physician would remove fibrotic tissue. I learned to distract her with conversations, minimize her pain. I was able to make her smile as I educated her how to care for the wound at home. She was extremely grateful to the physician. So just a very common thing. I stay away, or I try to tell students, stay away from being thanked.
Yeah.
Having patients be grateful. She thanked me. So the story is good that you could have focused a little bit more on showing and not telling to help with that story. The fact that the takeaway focuses on the patient being grateful, the patient thanking me, is where it takes a little bit of a turn for the worse there.
Okay.
More research here, good amount of hours. Again, the skills that you learned here, what you learned how to do, like I learned to prepare and interpret flow cytometry, generate figures, and present these findings in lab meetings, right? Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
So not super impactful there, but kind of basic. Research is a hard one to have any impact on in terms of stories.
You're going to love my personal statement. I talk a little bit about research in there, and we can skip over that paragraph.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
I've
learned my lesson.
Spoiler alert. All right, so more clinical experience. So from a clinical experience standpoint, you got lots of clinical experience. It's great. We haven't seen shadowing yet, right?
So I was going to ask you about that too. I haven't done like formal shadowing. I did it a little bit as when I was in the emergency department. I just kind of did it informally with doctors and nurses. And then here as a scribe, I'm essentially doing some shadowing too. So, but would you recommend shadowing in addition to these? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And does that mean you have to go out and get shadowing, or should you kind of extract out hours of your current job? So your current job where you have listed as a medical assistant, should you put medical assistant / scribe to make it stand out that you're a scribe there as well? Because a lot of schools will consider scribing basically shadowing on steroids. But can you, instead of the 2,080 hours that you have listed here, can you put 2,000 hours as a medical assistant / scribe and 80 hours of shadowing, because you're just sitting around watching as the doctor's doing a lot of things? You could do that, right? That's not cheating. Where the cheating comes in is if you have 2,080 hours of medical assistant / scribe, and that's your total hours. And then on top of that, you say 80 hours is shadowing, and you have more hours total than hours that are true of what you've done, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
As long as you're taking hours away from the other activity, you can split one activity into clinical experience and shadowing, and both of those hours add up into the total.
Okay. Got it.
So community service here again, your volunteer coordinator, you have, again, just more learning skills, etc. How critical compassion and empathy are to the medical field. Like, we finally found someone who knows, right?
I cracked the code.
That's where we've been going wrong this whole time. So again, just very common mistake, focusing on skills and not impact. Paid employment here as this parking supervisor, again, skills. You spell it out for the reader. Even at the last most meaningful part. While the skills I learned are incredibly unique, I developed necessary problem-solving skills and perseverance to adapt to any situation. So I am ready. I have the skills. You should accept me, and let's just get this over with. All right. Again, hobbies. You took what could be just a nice little story about playing the ukulele, and you talked about the importance of perseverance, precision, and determination. Because somewhere on some list, you learned that perseverance, precision, and determination are needed to get through medical school, get through residency, be a good doctor. All right. So just the same mistakes over and over and over again.
I know.
And that's okay. And again, I consider these mistakes. Does every pre-health advisor consider them mistakes? No. I think they are, because they don't show me who you are.
Yeah.
All right. And then we get to personal statement. And your personal statement starts off really good, right? Of this kind of seed moment that I talk about in terms of what exposure to healthcare did you have? And for you, it was this VSD, this ventricular septal defect, having this defect as a kid, and what that was like, and how the doctor impacted your life. And that was great. And then you don't really, at that moment, this first paragraph, reflect on how that impacted you in terms of letting you want to explore healthcare. But it was more, what an amazing job to teach people of all ages about their bodies and save lives at the same time. So kind of this generic kind of statement. When you look at the next paragraph, you talk about over time, your defects slowly began to close. And just this thought of the doctor sticking in your mind, going through biology. And then the most cliche in your personal statement, my science courses and desire to help others began steering me towards medicine, right? I like science. I want to help people.
Yep.
So kind of cliche there. And then you get into your kind of first experience in a clinical setting. And so you start volunteering in this emergency care center, and you learned the hospital's core values during your training, and one that resonated with you was their idea of dignity that focused on being mindful of my impact on others and treating every interaction as meaningful. Okay, so it's like, hey, like, I learned from the hospital, like, this really wasn't a part of me to take care of people and treat people with dignity, but the hospital taught me this, and I'm like, hey, this is really cool. So you have a little bit of your story here of this Spanish-speaking patient coming in. Just my general kind of preference is don't have dialogue in your personal statement. So you have lots of dialogue here with this patient. And so that's just very distracting for me. And we get right back to the being thanked theme of he thanked me repeatedly as I escorted him to his room. And so just that theme in general, I typically have students stay away from. And I get a lot of pushback on it from students. And here's my rationale behind it. When I'm reading an essay, I will ask the question, if you are focusing on gratitude and being thanked as a motivation for being a physician, what happens when you get out into the quote unquote real world and you're working as a resident, you're working as an attending, and you're starting to realize that not all patients thank you, that not all patients are there to give you gratitude? What will continue to motivate you and drive you as you're going through your journey or in your journey? What's going to continue to keep you happy if you're not being thanked as much as you want to be or as much as you think you should be? What is there to motivate you? And so that's where I say, just stay away from being thanked and gratitude and all that fun stuff. Your research paragraph you mentioned, let's just skip it.
Yep.
I'm good with that. So,
thank you.
So in general, just if you're new to watching application renovation, I don't think research belongs in a personal statement. The personal statement should be, why do you want to be a doctor? And 99 times out of 100, your research doesn't contribute to that question. Now, some of you may say, but, and it's not a hard and fast rule that all research should stay out of the personal statement, but this, especially the way that this research is presented, definitely doesn't need to be there. And then we get to this next paragraph here. After graduating from college, I began working as a medical assistant at the derm clinic. Great. Now tell me a story of one of your patients. But then you go with perseverance, I pushed through the steep learning curve and understanding the language of dermatologic anatomy, diagnosis, and treatments on top of learning medical office logistics. As confidence built, I then took on the rewarding responsibility of teaching patients about their conditions, blah, 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 blah. So again, just lots of skills and the things that you think are going to make you a good doctor. And just doesn't add to what's going on. Who are you? This is very resume. Put it in your activity section. Doesn't need to be in your application. And then final paragraph, conclusion, bring it home. Give me something good that makes me feel good to walk away from. What I like to look at for a personal statement conclusion is aspirational. What do you hope to accomplish? And yours is, I learned how empathy and communication in conjunction with determination, professionalism, and knowledgeability. What is knowledgeability? That's a new word for me. What is that one?
Do you want? Oh gosh, I was like, do I need an exact definition?
No, knowledge.
I don't know. I just meant along the lines of like being able to learn new things and kind of understand and pull from there. But yeah. Right. Trying too hard.
Yeah, knowledgeability. I wonder if that's a real word. Somebody define that and put it in the YouTube comments. Are critical to success, right? So again, just like, yes, all of those things are definitely true. And so what, right? Medicine is a beautiful art combining a curiosity for science, a passion for helping others, right? Science and helping people, desire to educate patients and families, blah, 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 right? And so the aspirational part is missing there. It's a lot of I learned what medicine is, therefore I should be one, and give me my white coat.
That's pretty much what I expected. So
Okay.
I was just making sure there was kind of no other red flags in there that I just, but
Yeah,
that's what I figured.
The big one we talked about is the lack of shadowing.
Yeah.
There are definitely going to be some schools that will just completely ignore your application because of lack of shadowing.
Mhm.
So I would definitely put that on there for next time. Looking at your school list, nothing really big stands out in terms of why did you apply there. Maybe one being Carle, Illinois. Why did you apply to their school?
Yeah, I didn't do my research beforehand and didn't know. And then I got the secondary and I go, what did I get myself into? So that one I had just looked over and I was like, yep, let's send it there. And not applying there again.
So Carle, I actually had Carle on the podcast a few times, actually, the Premed Years podcast. One of the episodes I had them on specifically was about secondary essays because theirs is very specific to their mission and students that they are hoping to accept. So yeah, that's funny. And then looking at the rest, you are a California resident, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You have Rutgers on there. Why did you apply there?
Again, I've done much more research this round on kind of schools, and I don't know a couple public schools that I applied to out of state, and I don't have a good reason for.
Yeah. So Rutgers, SUNY Upstate.
Yeah.
Washington. Okay. So you made the mistakes. You've learned from them. That is what we call life. So hopefully we can improve. Not a ton of improvement really needed from grades, MCAT, experiences, other than getting that shadowing in. Whether you seek out additional shadowing or you kind of extract out shadowing from the experiences you've had. I don't think there's one way to do that better than another. Especially right now with COVID and kind of the lack of shadowing opportunities. I think that's going to be hard. You could do some virtual shadowing like I do with e-shadowing and put that on your application. I think that's legit as well. And then just telling the story better, as it seems to always come down to.
And then I did have a quick couple of questions for you. Yeah. So in terms of like being a reapplicant, I know they always say like, oh, you're looking for what's different from your last one and that you're still committed to medicine and doing these things. So is continuing to work and like I've gotten promotions at my job, so I was going to include that as a new little activity, but is that like enough, I guess, to say that I'm still, pursuing medicine actively and still...
Yeah, I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's scary being a reapplicant for that reason, especially if you're doing a lot of the right things already. It's like, well, do I need to quit my job and go get another job? No, like you don't need to do any of that. You have a great job. You're getting great experience. Continue doing that. The growth for you is going to be through reflection. That's where a lot of your growth is going to come from, not what are you doing.
Okay. And then I was just worried too, as for one of my activities, when I was the parking supervisor in there, I wasn't sure, should I split that into like a work experience and a leadership experience? Because I didn't necessarily put it as a leadership one, but I'm thinking now that probably would have been a good idea.
You don't have to. If you have the space, and I don't remember how many activities you had listed there, you could potentially do that and separate out the leadership experience from that. That's definitely a potential.
And then let's see. So one other thing too, I did meet with another advisor, and she looked at my application. I know I betrayed you. And she looked at it and she goes, "Oh yeah, I don't know why you didn't get interviews. Maybe you need to volunteer more."
Yeah.
So do you think that I'm?
It's a very common excuse. Is you haven't served your community enough by volunteering at the soup kitchen. You haven't proven that you are one who will sacrifice yourself for others. I think along with research, I think that's one of the most overrated parts of an application. Obviously, medicine is a field where you are sacrificing a lot of your life to get the training and education and everything else to serve others, and being on call and being at the hospital for 20 hours, all that stuff. You're giving up a lot to be a physician. Does working at the soup kitchen prove that you are one who's going to go serve others? I don't think so. Are schools out there looking for it? Yeah, there are some schools that want to see non-clinical volunteering on an application. It is what it is. Do you need to go out and do those things? I don't think you do. If you have time to do them, great, go do them.
Okay. That's reassuring to hear. I was like, what? The 3 years in the hospital don't count? Like, I was trying to figure out. So that's good. And then I think I'm just making sure I hit on my things. Another small question. If you got published as like a review article, this is going back to research, but worth it to put in your application? Like, yeah, okay. I just wasn't sure because it was like a review article and like a review journal, so I wasn't sure if it counted as something to
put it in.
Okay,
so
sure.
You've been doing.
Alrighty, and then my last question was about class-wise. So I didn't take a math class in college. I got out of it by taking the AP Calc. So I'm kind of double checking schools as I go and making sure that they do take AP credit. But do you recommend going back and taking a math college course just to have it under my belt? Or
Yeah, I think you'll just have to do your research. Will schools accept AP credit? Are the schools you're applying to on that list? If schools that you want to go to don't accept AP credit, then you're going to need that. Now, do you need it to apply to those schools? Absolutely not. Will you potentially need it for matriculation? Yes. Will a school interview you and accept you with a requirement for a math class that you haven't taken? Yes, that is definitely possible. Can you go to that school and say, hey, like, you've accepted me. I haven't taken a math class. Can you accept my AP credit? And they could potentially go, yeah, that's fine. We'll accept that. Or they may go, no, you need to take a math course before you matriculate. And then you'll just have to take a math course.
Okie doke. I think otherwise, just I kind of knew what you were I guess what you were going to say about the personal statement and the activities. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I've been trying to work on. So, but I appreciate the feedback and the input, and just hearing it from you makes it real.
It is real. Go forth and improve those essays and
Yes. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Good luck.